Hello, everybody, and welcome to the after show for Apple TV's Servants. We are going to be diving into season 3 for the next 10 weeks. My name is Heather Wixson. I'm going to be your host, and Rick Hong here is going to be my co-host, and then we're going to have special guests every week. I want to go ahead and let both of you sort of introduce yourselves and kind of let the audience know a little bit about yourselves, just because everyone's going to probably hear me talk way too much. So I want to hand it over to you both.
Hey guys, I'm Rick Hong, and welcome to the Servant Season 3 After Show. And I'm an entertainment correspondent, and for Hollywood First Look with my friend Kiyra. Wait, Kiyra. I don't know my right and left. Kiyra Lynn up there, so I'll let her say hi.
Yes, I am Kiyra Lynn, and I'm an entertainment journalist, critic, also a part of the Hollywood Critics Association, to which you guys have found us. And I am the guest for the season 3 Servant After Show, and I work for a television show called Hollywood First Look with Rick Hong. So it's funny that we're kind of tag teaming today. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking about this season because I'm a big fan.
I have nobody to point to, you guys. Like, I don't know who to point to.
You got Jason and Venom?
Freddie. That's Freddie. That's Freddie from New Nightmare.
Oh, see, New Night.
Oh, no. We have 10 weeks ahead of us, Rick. We don't want to start off that way. So, we're obviously all here because we're fans of this show. And I'm curious, before we sort of dive into season 3, I mean, this is a mystery box, sort of contained within another mystery. Like there's so many little elements of this story that it's like one of those things where every time I think I know where it's going, it goes somewhere else. And I'm curious, do either one of you have any sort of like theories about where you think this is ultimately heading? Or is it just kind of like, hey, let's see where we go this week?
I got to talk tonight about this for this season. And I told him my theory, and I said, this is what's up. What's up is that the baby's real. Everybody else is a figment of his imagination. But the thing is that since he's a baby and his mind hasn't developed yet, that's why everything else that he observes around him is so bizarre. And Knight was like, go put that up on the message boards and everything. He actually liked the idea. So we shall see if that's what ultimately is the ending.
I think after watching seasons 1 and 2, you can't predict anything. Like I've done other after shows where it's like, oh, what do you predict is going to really happen? And things just come out of left field. I mean, I personally can't really anticipate anything. I mean, maybe like the Wicked Witch of the West flying down, on a broom wearing green. I mean, that could plausibly happen. But yeah, no idea where this season's going to go. But what I saw tonight, was brilliant, and I really enjoyed how they opened up the season.
I would agree with you. And I think what's interesting too for me is, one, I love that sort of the end of season 2 was this Christmas this Christmas holiday, that you end up getting sort of the little technical thing.
Sorry about that.
No worries. But they get their Christmas miracle, right? Like Jericho comes back, and you feel like you get a sense of all is right in the world for at least a brief moment. And then all of a sudden there's like a power outage, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. So I really wasn't expecting that we were going to pick up 3 months later, but I think the time shift is interesting because it's allowed the characters to grow, where we're not seeing them. So we're kind of picking up in their lives a little bit later. And I think for me, the favorite thing is sort of the shift in dynamics, because there was a lot of tension that we were getting from Dorothy and Nell that really drove season 2. And I kind of love that Dorothy is making Nell her project and empowering her this season.
Oh, I like that analysis. I have a tendency to agree with you on that. What about you, Rick? What do you think?
Well, what I liked about, from then till now, also like the 3 months, passing by, is finally figuring out what Julian's like thing is with wine, why he's such an aficionado. We finally figure it out. Oh yeah, that's why. Which, I mean, it does, add up and make sense. But that's one of the things where I was like, oh, okay, so he's an alcoholic and he went to rehab. So now he's on that, that kick of like, okay, I'm a health nut. I've got like my green juice, and I've got like, I'm a, I got to get the Peloton and get going and stuff and keep my body and mind pure.
I want to talk about the finale a little bit, kind of leading into the first episode. When we leave Dorothy, she is on the verge of a complete meltdown. She's about to commit suicide. She comes down and saves Leanne, and obviously they don't know that Leanne has killed Aunt Josephine and is hiding her in the wall. But and then cut to 3 months later, and to what you were saying, Heather, to seeing how relaxed she is, how empowered she is. I'm wondering how long this will last, because we know that Dorothy has a tendency to begin and seem really steady, and then fall back, what is it? 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. So I want to see how long this iteration of Dorothy will last. And, once the craziness begins, because we all know it's going to start, whether or not we'll see the old Dorothy again.
I will say I found Lauren Ambrose to be like such a revelation in this series, because if you think about season 1 and they do that episode where they show you everything that has happened and what went down that day with baby Jericho, to me that was like one of the most stunning things that I've ever watched in a television series, and how bold and how stark and like just it still haunts me 2 years later. And I love sort of this evolution of her where there's like an underplay that happens with her where, she has the moment where she's talking to Sean and said something like, they're talking about like jealousy and whether, they talk about Sean and Nell's connection. And Sean says something to the effect of like, you're not even jealous. And, and he's like, oh, jealousy wouldn't look good on you. And she's like, everything looks good on me. And I was like, good for you, Lauren Ambrose. Like, I love that she just kind of owns it. And I think there's something really interesting too about, she's somebody who's been through a lot, but she doesn't quite know exactly what she's been through because she's compartmentalized this horrible thing now. And I really like, we get so close. You mentioned the end of season 2. I'm wondering just how much this is going to blow up by the time we get to, where this story is heading. Cause I know they're back for season 4, but I can't remember if they said that like season 5 was going to be it, or if they were going to come back for season 5. But I just feel like at some point, Dorothy has to reckon with what happened that day, because she's gotten close. Like she touched the outfit. She's almost there, but ultimately then Jericho coming back like pushes it way down again. And you're like, oh, okay. So it's interesting because it's somebody who has been through so much, but yet she doesn't really know like it's just so pushed deep down inside of her. I'm curious how it's going to all kind of come out. And I wonder if it's going to be this season or if it'll be next.
Knight also Knight basically kind of, they posted the announcement about season 4. And then I was talking to him about it, and I was just kind of saying, how do you like doing a series over a certain amount of years versus, having to do it in about 2.5 hours on film for a movie. And he basically said like all the episodes, he says like, here we take this story and we're able to tell the whole story in 40. So he's basically kind of confirmed to say they've got it down for 4 seasons.
Okay. Interesting. So you mentioned how Julian has kind of come back a new man. He's drinking health juices. He's getting Peloton bikes or something or other. I like this Julian. I mean, not that I didn't like him before, because there's something always extremely lovable about how Rupert's played this character. But I will say, like, one of my favorite moments of this episode is when he's sitting there and he's exercising and he's talking to Jericho. And he's talking about like this idea of like, your dad's going to want you to be a chef, but you don't have to be. Like, this baby has any idea what he's saying. But I just thought it was really interesting because not only is he like, sort of bonding with the kid, but also he's projecting things about himself onto him. And I just thought, again, what I love about it's everything is so layered, and it all of it means something. And I'm just curious to see if like that's going to end up paying off at some point, because we've seen their dad kind of come in and out throughout the seasons. And I'm just curious because some of it, I don't know if you guys have been up to episode 5 yet, but I haven't seen anything beyond that. I'm just really interested to see like if we're going to get more into the psychology of what Dorothy and Julian have kind of gone through in terms of how they were raised where they are now. But I will say I do like their pirate song a whole lot.
Yeah, they're yeah, that little thing is kind of nice, like in terms of seeing the kind of like the history of like the brother sister relationship when they were kids or something, like that weird song. You're like, okay, like that's them being like playful and fun and everything. And clearly like that's something that comes from them being brother and sister. And like the actors themselves, you know, Rupert and Lauren do an amazing job. Like you really, I mean, it's not just the red hair, like you really believe that they're brother and sister.
Oh, absolutely. What I really love about watching Rupert play him is the fact that he is just all the way, you know, all through season 1, season 2, he's literally an asshole. Like he's just, and you know, obviously we all know him from the Harry Potter series, whatnot. And it's so nice to see him, you know, play a completely different character than we're used to seeing. I don't feel that, here I am sounding really, not very positive in regards to the characters, but I'm like, how long is, you know, the rehab stint how long will his sobriety stick? But also, you know, Leanne has even said to him, you know, I like who you really are. Why are you trying to fake this new person? That's not who you are. So I think, you know, she understands that this he wants to be good. And let's, you know, I think we all want him to be good, but, you know, we'll see how far, and hopefully, you know, hopefully he'll make it through. You know, I have high hopes, but this is also Servant, so who knows?
Yeah, I'm not, you know, like everybody else, it's like, you know, everybody has the fascinations with, you know, Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint and Emma Watson as, you know, the Harry Potter trio or whatever. But I am not a Harry Potter fan whatsoever. And when I knew that Rupert Grint was going to be in this, I was like, oh man, it's like Toby Kebbell, great. You know, Nell Tiger Free, I was like, I don't know who she is, which was a good thing at the time. I obviously know who she is now. And then Lauren Ambrose, I was like, yeah, that's an interesting choice or whatever. And she's done an amazing job too. But Rupert in this is awesome. He probably actually is like my favorite character in this because of like the way he portrays Julian.
Yes. And it's kind of like, you know, him being on the straight and narrow. It's like, we kind of don't want to be him to be on the straight and narrow because he's so good playing the asshole.
And yeah, and like they also like give him some, like they just give him some great dialogue, you know, like when it's him and you know, like they're talking and he says he's just like, you know, I've like my hairline, you know, he's like you want someone with like tighter abs, and like my hair, like his delivery and everything, and just the fact of it's just like, wow, he's really, you know, like obviously someone wrote that, but he's delivering those lines like it's really coming from him about, you know, how he physically looks.
I just have to mention one thing that, you know, I think Lauren Ambrose is probably the only American actor in this series. Toby, Nell, and Rupert are all English. And the way that Toby delivers his accent, it's not specifically toward, like, it doesn't really sound Philly to me, but every time I hear him in it, and knowing that he's English, and they all slip in and out of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
His specific what is it?
Delivery or his
delivery or his accent is so specific, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you, because he kind of lays it on really thick when they're at the Jersey Shore and those two guys are walking behind him. But yeah, Rick, like you, I was not really into Harry Potter. I was a little bit older. I wasn't quite the target audience for it when it all hit. So like the first couple movies, like I was taking kids that I was babysitting to go see it, but it kind of just escaped me. So for me, like getting to see Rupert do this kind of stuff, like I know his legacy is like a kid actor, and you know, honestly, it just makes me happy to see these kids come out and get to do some really cool stuff, because sometimes kid actors don't quite make it through those initial experiences, but all of them seem to be really thriving. But I will say, in terms of Rupert, what I love is that we have the addition of Sunita Mani, who I absolutely adore her. She shows up on a lot of comedy. She was on Glow.
Sunitha, TH.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no. I had to figure that out too. Sunitha. Yeah, it's Sunitha, but go ahead.
I apologize. And you think I would know that because I saw her do a Q&A a few years ago. I think it was Sundance 2020. There was a movie she did. It was an apocalyptic movie. And
Save yourselves.
Yes.
Awesome movie.
Yes. And, but I loved her on Glow, and which I'm still sad about.
I think we're all sad about Glow.
Yeah.
Maybe, obviously we're talking about Serpent, but I think we need to kind of petition to bring Glow back.
If we have any power in this universe, we need to use it just for one movie, wrap it up, and then we're good. We're fine.
Stop saying Beirut. Stop saying Beirut.
I love the fact that, that there is color, that they're very smart about bringing people of color, even though the main 4 actors are not of color, that they are making sure that there is other representation in other side characters. I mean, unfortunately, I think Natalie has now gone from the circle, who dumping him during rehab, but it's going to be nice to see. It's Vera, correct? Did I get the name? Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see more of Vera. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and right now, just in this first episode too, she's just kind of there so far. She's not we haven't really, because we know her more as like a comedic actress. She's in commercials and stuff. So in this, it's kind of like, oh, she's kind of in the suspense drama thriller, and she's kind of a good, she's kind of a good addition to this cast. But we haven't gotten too much from her yet.
I will say, though, in the scene when Julian and Dorothy are singing, though, her reaction to it is really subtle. But if you watch it, the first time I watched it, I caught it a little bit. But rewatching the episode, I was like, I actually laughed because I was really focused on her at that point, and I was like, oh, she's a good addition, because everybody in this world is playing everything so straight and so serious that I think she's going to add a lot to the dynamics. Plus, I think just her and Rupert are going to have some really fun energy. Even just, again, we saw her for 2 or 3 minutes in this, but I'm like, okay, I want to see more of this. And you know what, Natalie, if you dump him while he's in rehab, that's not good.
I don't know. I loved that actress and I loved that character, and I'm kind of disappointed not to see her, but hopefully maybe she'll make a return. I do want to ask you guys, if either one of you had a particular favorite scene during the episode, because I know that there was a few that actually stuck out to me. Rick, did you have a favorite scene?
Well, something, because I actually had to go look at the time, and it's right at 6 minutes, and I think 6 minutes and 30 seconds. It might be at 6:24, but like we were talking earlier, is that the baby was Jericho wasn't, at times he's the fake baby, at times he's the real baby. This season, he's a series regular. Jericho is back, he's a baby, he's he's in a lot of the scenes. The actors are all holding him and everything. And around that time, you watch dialogue between Leanne and Dorothy, and they're talking, I think they're doing the teething thing or whatever. And you see the baby look up at Nell, or looking up at Leanne, and giving just a little bit of a smile, and she smiles back, but she goes straight back. They're still acting. And I'm like, wow, it's you can't tell the baby to give that reaction to them. That's just him doing his thing, and them also doing their thing.
Oh my gosh, I loved that moment when she puts her finger in his mouth and the baby just looks at her so lovingly. Yeah, I love that too.
The kid's a pro. He's 8 months old, or a little over. Yeah, he's
already has a tag card, Yeah. How about you? Was there a particular scene that really stuck out for you?
Yeah, I think there was a few. First and foremost, there's obviously the scene at the end when the burglar shows up. Because things get really intense, but then also we get that sort of nightmare imagery of goodness gracious, Josephine's body covered in the moths, which is just disgusting and horrifying. And you're like, what do you even do with that? Like, you can't call an exterminator for like, hey, my dead body in the crawl space has got moths. Like, I don't think that's gonna fly. So that, to me, like, that whole sequence was really fantastic. The one thing that I thought was interesting, because, you know, obviously there's something more going on with Leanne in this. And I thought particularly her sort of having the episode in the basement, and then, you know, this blank journal that she's supposed to be pouring her emotions into that she just hasn't been using. Suddenly she has this thing happen where all of a sudden she's drawing these seagulls and finds out after a phone call with Dorothy that Julian had gotten attacked by a flock of seagulls, and not the band. So I'm curious, like, for you, both of you, like, what, I don't even know what to quite make of that, because it sort of is bending some of the things, like my theories about about Leanne, in terms of her character's abilities. Like, what do you think that means?
Well, you know what? I remember, and it was Uncle George was saying, and I can't remember whether or not it was the end of season 1 or somewhere in between season 2, when he starts talking about, no, maybe it was in season 1, where they're in the basement after the baptism, and Uncle George is like, you know, either Leanne is really in love with you, and if she doesn't, she starts to do things to you. And that's like when, you know, when he was talking about the splinter coming out. So to see these sort of telekinesis things happen with Leanne now, you know, obviously when they were having, when her and Julian were coming back from the walk, and the top of the building almost falls on him.
Right.
And then and then obviously with the seagulls. So for me, I was able to kind of bridge that gap, that maybe, you know, this is part of one of the powers that she has. Obviously, you know, she can heal people. She brought Julian back to life at the end of season 2. So, you know, who knows what else she has up her sleeve. And it's like, you know, that the end of season 2, that teeny tiny fire that Aunt Josephine had, you know, burning, and then to see how charred her body was. I mean, was it a magical fire? I mean, anything goes in Servant, right?
I wouldn't really be surprised at this point if at the end we get to it and it's like, oh, Leanne's a superhero and she's been part of the Unbreakable universe the entire time. And we're like, Knight, you mad genius, you, because, you know, then we're going to get another movie, which is fine. I'm game to watch anything from him. But it's interesting to me because I feel like, as much as, you know, we're sort of the mystery of Jericho and him coming back, and we get some ideas of how exactly that happens at the end of season 2. Lost my voice there for a second. Leanne seems to really have a lot more going on. And to me, like, I came into this series absolutely enthralled by Dorothy. And as we've gone on, I just can't stop watching Leanne, because I just can't wait to see what she's going to do next. And I just find her really fascinating. And I think Nell's performance is so beautiful. Like, just, I feel so bad for her. Like, I want her to be happy, but like, just seeing her sort of work through a lot of these things too, just is really compelling. Well, I like that she gets drunk too, though.
What's that? That's what I like. We see her like let loose a little bit. This is the first time where she kind of does something that's very un-Leanne-like, you know. Yeah, I mean, like, she gets drunk, and then, you know, and then she's like, then she drunk dials, you know, and then she's like, I'm in a 2-piece bikini and everything, you know, and like not getting the response that she wants. But
so
I know me, if I got that call, I'd have been like, I'm there. And instead, the guy's like, I could see you like at 10 o'clock, and she's like, no, I'm not having it.
Click, we're out.
You know, I am really surprised, because I know that Servant has really, it was kind of a little bit under the radar in regards to awards. And I'm surprised that it hasn't really picked up more, because, you know, the performances, especially what you were saying earlier, Heather, Lauren Ambrose is a boss in season 2. I mean, especially in season 2, but like, you know, I'm really surprised that this really hasn't picked up more nominations than it has.
I agree with you there, because it just feels like, if we're talking about like award bait type shows, like this is like, from the production, like every detail matters in the show, every line of dialogue matters. The performances are meticulous. They're all directed with such confidence. Like, I don't know what it's going to take to get people's attention more, but like, seriously, if there's a, like, somebody in the awards realm anywhere, like, who hasn't seen, especially when I talk about that episode where when Dorothy leaves Jericho in the car, like, that's the moment. That is the moment that should have been in front of every single voter in every single guild, and been like, this is why you need to pay attention to this show, because there is such a rawness to that episode that, again, like, Lauren did the work, and she continues to do the work. And I think, especially now coming into season 3, I really feel like Nell is coming into her own. I've always liked Leanne, but I really feel like this is like her season, because she's getting to be a person that we haven't had a chance to see her be before. But I do like her, just sort of embracing different parts of what we would consider normal life, because it's not her experience. And I'm excited to see that sort of play out as the episodes go on.
Because you're kind of right about that. Because in the previous season, it's Toby. It's the Sean character that's really trying to hold all the pieces together, and you have Leanne come into this dynamic, and she's kind of she's supposed to balance out everything and help out, but instead she causes like chaos because the baby comes alive, and so Sean's trying to like navigate that. Meanwhile, he's trying to like navigate his like unstable wife, who's like like with the unreal baby, and then the real baby. And then in season 2, when Jericho disappears, he's still trying to balance, or like whatever. So it is like you said, for like this season, now he can kind of like step back a little bit, because as we open up, it kind of seems like, yeah, we're kind of in a happy place. Everybody seems balanced except for Leanne, because she's all paranoid about what the repercussions are going to be from everything that happened in season 2.
Just to go back to something that Heather said, that hopefully in regards to getting this show on other people's radars, I know that I've been raving about Servant for a few seasons. Especially I watched season 1 and was just floored. But hopefully after shows like this, people will find our after show, or this particular after show, and be able to it'll just spread like wildfire, more word of mouth. Anybody that's listening, and you guys feel that this show needs to be elevated, and maybe necessarily not get X, Y, and Z types of awards, but put it on more people's radars so more people will be watching. And I mean, I think Rick, you and I were discussing, they've already greenlit season 4 even before season 3 has even been released. So Apple obviously feels really confident about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that too is the power of Night, not only as a producer but a storyteller himself. And what I think is cool, you talked a little about sort of like Sean and Dorothy, and I think what's fun is, like, in the first couple of seasons, I don't want to say that I didn't feel like Sean and Dorothy shouldn't be together, but sometimes you kind of wonder, why are they together? And I really, especially in this first episode, I really like Lauren and Toby's performances, because for the first time I really felt like genuine affection between them, because again, they're also dealing with trauma and a lot of different things in the 2 previous seasons, so there's a lot of stressors, and there's a little formality and things like that. So I loved in this season opener specifically that, like, we got a sense of who they are as a married couple and why they would be together in the first place. Like, I like them talking about the first meal that he made for her. And I will say, like, every time I watch Servant, it makes me want to go cook something, but I'm never going to be as good as Sean, but it makes me want to try. I made stuffed shells tonight while I was rewatching the end of season 2. I was like, oh, I think I'm going to make some stuffed shells. And so
I say when the 3 of us get back together, and I was actually texting this to Rick, when the 3 of us get back together, we all need to have glasses of wine in order and sit there and discuss the show, because, man, I was thirsty, and it's still in the middle of the weekday, but I was like, you know what? For For this show, I will drink wine on camera. It's almost like a toast. It's almost like a toast to the show.
They should do.
Oh yeah, I actually meant to say it's like I actually dressed to channel my inner Julian. You know, a little bit of sweat.
I dress like usually I wear t-shirts for these shows, so I was like, oh, I should wear a sweater or something because they dress so nice on this show. I really should get my hair done too. But I almost think like we should have like a cooking after show or something where like we get Toby in here and be like, come on, let's do some recipes or something. And because I'm guessing because of how specific he is with how he does things on that show and how in camera, like I'm guessing he's had to immerse himself in a lot of that.
Absolutely. I interviewed him and actually the cast for season 1, and I actually asked him in regards to that. He was not a cook at all. So if I can remember correctly, I think, you know, his mom was sort of like the gourmet in the family. So he picked up a few things, but they actually had to train him in order to do all of those close-up shots and be able to look like he was a real chef. So he's almost doing double duty, the accent, and then, you know, playing a chef who is, what do they call it? He's a molecular, they gave him
kind of
something like that. They give him a really specific, you know, title of what it is that he does. But, you know, Sean, and I just want to go back to what you were saying, Heather, in regards to Sean and Dorothy's relationship. Season 1 and season 2, their relationship made me uncomfortable. And in my mind, every time I'd hear them kind of bicker and snicker at each other, you know, I just have to say, you know what, maybe that's just their love language between each other. You know, maybe that's just how that's, you know, obviously they've been married a while, and you know, and just even some of the remarks that Dorothy has said, oh, you know, Sean doesn't like anybody, or if Sean's being nice, these are the reasons why, you know, these are the only reasons why Sean is nice. So to finally see them be kind and loving and snuggly with each other is really, really sweet. And I liked seeing that that shot where, you know, they're trying to take a selfie, you know, when they're feeding Jericho the food, and all of them are joyous, but Leanne. Like even you even see Julian, they're all so excited. And that's something I don't think any of us have seen throughout the first 2 seasons. So it was a nice change of pace.
Yeah. And like Servant, I'm guessing the joy will probably end up being short-lived. But that's why we love it. Last thoughts, you know, because we've been on for a little bit over half an hour. Any last thoughts? Are there sort of things you're hoping we get into further in the season? I mean, I know we're going to be getting some sort of payoff with Leanne's paranoia because they, you know, I don't think that's unfounded here.
I guess it's just trying to figure out what, you know, what's the body that's in the wall. Like, are they ever gonna like pull that thing out? You know, it's like I guess like that's like one of the mysteries. I was like, or will that go into season 4? Or will it just all the moths just kind of just take the whole thing away?
I'm wondering because, you know, the tail end of season 2, you know, there was that whole voiceover that Leanne gave, and she was like, oh, you know, I know in killing you, she said something like that, I started a war and I know that people are coming. So obviously people are going to be coming for Leanne. So I guess if there's a prediction, that's going to be it. But who these people are, we don't know. Obviously, Uncle George and Aunt May are no longer in the picture, according to Aunt Josephine. So who is this new group of people? You know, obviously, are they from the cult? You know, so I guess that will be. We'll wait till see. We'll wait to see.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that sort of struck me the most is there's a line that Dorothy says towards the end of the episode, and she's talking to Leanne after trying to calm her down, you know, post-robbery and things like that. And she said something to the effect of, what's crueler, living in an indifferent world or one that's constantly testing us? And I really feel like that is going to be the theme of this season, where I think everybody, for as joyous as they are in this first episode, I think the tests are to come, and I think they're all going to have to be tested in new ways. And I'm really excited, a little bit nervous to see how that's all going to play out. But I have to give a shout out to the writers on this show because they just do a phenomenal job. And I also think it's really great that Knight gets to work with his daughter on this series as well, because I know she directs a couple of the episodes later on, and she might have been the writer on this episode or a co-writer on this episode. And I know she did a few in season 2 as well.
Well, I know the showrunner is Tony Bascalop, and he does a lot of the writing and the direction, at least in season 1 and season 2. I haven't done a deep dive in season 3, but he's been doing a fantastic job. So
yeah, I'm really excited, and we hope that you guys out there are excited as well. We're going to be back here every Thursday diving into new episodes of Servant. Why don't you both go ahead and we'll wrap up by telling everybody where they can find you online, so that way they can go and support your work outside of the show.
Oh, I'm Rick Hong. You can find me at Rick Hong on all social media.
And I'm Kiyra Lynn, and you can find me at Kiyra Lynn on all social media as well.
Wonderful. And I'm Heather Wixson. You can find me at The Horror Chick. I also realized at the beginning I didn't even introduce myself because I went ahead and dove right into both of you. But I'm the managing editor over at dailydead.com. I'm also a Fangoria contributor. And I recently published my latest book called Monsters, Makeup, and Effects, Volume 1. And it came out in October, and Volume 2 will be out in this summer. So if you're into that kind of stuff, make sure to check it out. But thank you both so much for doing this. This is really fun. Rick and I will be back next week with a new guest host, and we will, be seeing. I don't remember which episode you're going to be up on. Probably episode 4.
But whatever episode it is, you guys, you better bring wine. You better bring
I know
wine.
when it's late at night, I kind of go with coffee because I'm still working. But I'll try for the next one. I'm actually doing an all-nighter tonight, so I'm like, oh gosh, if I started drinking the fun stuff, I would be out. So, but I think wine is necessary.
You've been forewarned, Heather. You've been forewarned. Or you could just you could just use grape juice and I would never know the difference.
Wonderful. Well, for everybody out there watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to head back here next week as we dive into episode 2 of Apple TV's Servant Season 3. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.